Mikhail, thanks so much for your time. So we're talking about an energy storage market that is fast growing, expected to reach some $350 billion by 2030. It's just around the corner. How are you positioning yourselves to benefit from this?
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure. So we're looking at utility scale applications. We think that because South Africa has vanadium, and it's actually the second largest resource base in the country, we see an opportunity to make one of the components of the vanadium redox cell batteries, the vanadium electrolyte, here in South Africa, and to actually play in a very large global supply chain. Bushveld Minerals, which recently acquired Vametco, is an AIM-listed company. We've got a very large base here in South Africa. We, at the moment, produce around 3.5% of the world's vanadium, and we're still looking at opportunities to increase that in the near future.
So locally here, who are your clients?
Well, so at the moment, we've got one project that we started last year with Eskom, and certainly the utility space is one of the locations where we think there's a very large opportunity for vanadium redox cell batteries. The battery can do a lot of things. It lasts for 20 years, unlike other technologies. It's very good for large energy applications. 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day of storage. Nobody can compete in terms of cost and price with a vanadium flow battery.
So I suppose as South Africa ramps up its not supply rather, but ramps up its renewable energy market, this feeds well with you guys.
It certainly does work very well with renewables, but whether we have a base load future such as coal or nuclear or renewables, storage makes the system much more efficient. And by the way, it's not only about South Africa, right? We've got very poor grids further north, a lot of off-grid opportunities in there. If you take solar, which is everywhere on the continent, we add storage to it. We've got a clean solution, and we've got a cheaper solution than diesel or heavy fuel, which is what most folks use nowadays.
What was interesting about the vanadium market, I see that the price in itself is actually doing very, very well, and they're talking about tighter supply, a lot more demand from the steel industry. What's going on there? Yeah,
so I think it's partially demand, but it's actually more supply. So South Africa used to produce a lot more. Highveld Steel and Vanadium actually used to produce some vanadium as well. Now that that's shut down, it's no longer putting any vanadium on the market. It's interesting how South Africa can actually impact the global market sometimes, and this is one of those cases. Also, we're seeing more demand in China because the vanadium is used outside of storage primarily in steel. And the regulatory environment has actually required higher grade steels, which require more vanadium. So that's increased demand within China. China used to export vanadium, they no longer do it. So that creates an opportunity for other countries that do have vanadium, South Africa having the second largest, to either export it or to get into the energy storage space, while China is basically more focused on their domestic market.
So, whenever as Highveld Steel did exit the game, who entered there? I know ArcelorMittal did take over some of their operations, but was the vanadium included?
Well, the mine was shut down. The Mapox mine hasn't been producing. So as a result, we had a number of producers in South Africa. We're now down to 2, ourselves being one of them.
Right, so this is a great export opportunity for South Africa if we can actually ramp this up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the idea is not to just export the material, it's to export beneficiated and higher value add products. So at Vametco, we make nitrovan, which is used for ferrovanadium, and that goes into steel. We want to make electrolyte out of the vanadium, so that will be another value-added product that Bushveld can add to its portfolio, and South Africa can add to its exports.
What's holding you back from doing more here?
Well, I think part of it is the market, right? So the market, it's growing very fast in countries like the United Kingdom, the United States, China, Australia. Here, not as fast, and so there's
Why not?
Well, there's regulatory uncertainty. How do you treat storage? Is it generation, or does it require licenses for that, or is it actually part of distribution and transmission? So some regulatory clarity and maybe just flexibility would be a plus. The other, this business model takes a little bit of time. We've been working together with the IDC on the manufacturing side, and you want to make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, that you're making an investment that's not going to be a white elephant. So that's what we've been working on the last year and a half, and if all goes well, we'll hopefully be producing next year.
Oh, next year. Okay, that was my next question. But thanks so much for that. Join us in studio when that production does kick off. But thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm saying goodbye to Mikhail Nikomarov, who is the CEO of Bushveld Energy.